host, Todd Flesner of Opus Mortgage.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Terrific.
I'll let folks know that they can watch our show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6:30 p.m. and also Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m.
And if you miss it, set your DVR.
Yeah, absolutely. So how you doing?
Doing terrific.
Great. Business is good?
Yeah, things are great. The loan business it can be a little bit tough. We've talked about that on our show before, but
Right.
things overall are good.
Good.
So no
Great.
complaints.
That's good to hear. So you
Yeah.
brought a guest?
I did. Yeah, I'd love to introduce folks to a friend of mine, Chris Roberts, and Chris is here from Critter Control. And
Nice to meet you.
And actually, Chris and I got to know each other a little bit better over this last year. Our sons played Little League ball together.
That's right.
And so we co-coached a team that actually from Milpitas here went on and represented Milpitas and won our district championship.
Terrific.
So we got champions here in Milpitas in baseball.
That's
That's great.
Thanks to Chris.
Well, welcome, and thank you for taking time out so that you can tell folks about what you do. So I'll kind of open up. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about your background, maybe where you grew up, where you were educated.
Okay. So again, I'm Chris Roberts with Critter Control of San Jose. I was born in Houston, Texas. I moved to Alaska when I was just a baby, back to Houston when I was 5, and then out here to Milpitas when I was 10. So I pretty much grew up in Milpitas and in the surrounding area. Went to elementary, middle school, and high school. Graduated from Milpitas High in 1991.
Nice.
Went to a couple semesters at Mission, then on to Ohlone and on to San Jose State. And then, of course, an inevitable workforce. So.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
glad you could come and share a little bit about that. So, Todd?
Yeah, so we know you're involved in the community. You volunteer as well with Little League, but we want to find out a little bit more about Critter Control. And maybe tell folks about what is Critter Control? What is it that you do? What services you provide? And
Sure.
so we'll hear about the critters.
Okay, be happy to. So what we are is we're a nuisance wildlife trapping company.
Mm-hmm.
So we come through, customer has a problem with, urbanized wildlife, raccoon, skunk, possum. We also do rodents, birds, snakes, pretty much anything except for bugs. They give us a call. We'll come out, figure out how they're getting in the house or under the shed or whatever the problem may be, why they're tearing up the lawn. Kind of educate the customer on what's going on, and give them a solution on how to fix it. That's pretty much what we do in a nutshell. I think what makes us special is definitely our customer service. We are full service. We're one of the only companies that, when it comes to rodents, will go into the attic and all the way into the crawl space. That's not very common these days. And as far as we're concerned, that's the only way you can solve the problem.
So, Milpitas in general, I mean, do we have a problem with
Yeah.
those type of animals?
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of rodent issues. We have a lot of raccoon calls, a lot of possum calls in Milpitas. Also, pigeons are a big thing in Milpitas as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Terrific. Well, so you've got to have some specialized sort of licenses or background and training. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So all of our guys are certified wildlife specialists through headquarters of Critter Control, which is actually in Traverse City, Michigan. So they have to go through a pretty rigorous testing program to get that certification. And then we're all licensed wildlife trappers through the Department of Fish and Wildlife for California.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Yeah.
And so do they regulate then the industry, or is that sort of...
Fish and wildlife?
Yes.
Yeah. Trapping wildlife is kind of one of those in-between things where, although you can buy all the materials, say at Orchard Supply or Home Depot, it's actually illegal for someone to trap wildlife without a license.
Wow.
So the guys you see on Wild Justice, I don't know if you guys watch that show with the California Department of Fish and Game, they're the guys we deal with all the time.
So what you mentioned rodents.
Mhm.
I'm going to make a guess. Is that the most common problem, or what do you see?
Yeah, year-round rodents is kind of our mainstay. They don't really have a season. They're kind of always a problem. And it kind of comes from the fact that they multiply so fast. They're constantly multiplying. Where the bigger species, they maybe do once or twice a year. So yeah, rodents are definitely our mainstay. But like right now, the big one is raccoons. Raccoons and skunks.
Are they? That's a seasonal.
Yeah, they're two times of the
water,
year. Well, what they're doing is in areas where it gets cold enough, they'll they'll hibernate. But they don't actually hibernate here, but they act like they're going to. So you'll see like the lawns will get torn up because they're going for the earthworms and the grubs and trying to fatten up. So that's kind of our big thing right now is raccoons and skunks.
Okay. You know, are the reasons why folks as homeowners ought to call you in as opposed to try to do it themselves? I mean, I know you mentioned it's not a legal sort of thing, but let's suppose somebody didn't know that. Why should they call Critter Control as opposed to try to self-help?
Well, I mean, it's one of the things is you need education in order to do it properly. It's not something that not everyone, what we could do can be taught to pretty much anyone, but you need to know what you're doing. If there's a safety issue, one of the biggest hazards with urbanized wildlife is that they they're not afraid of us as they should be. Out there in the wild, they just want to get away from you. Here, people will say, "Oh, I saw a raccoon. It was by my garbage cans, and it wasn't even afraid of me." Well, that's not a good thing. So that's why you really need a professional to come out and take care of it safely. Also, we also provide repair work, so we can troubleshoot where they're coming in the house and also repair those spots for you.
So I would guess, and this happened in my home, there was, I think it was a possum that had gotten in, but through the vents. I think they're screening
the foundation vents.
So you recommend that those stay secure, and also up in the attic areas, make sure that those areas are not accessible to.
Absolutely. I recommend walking around the perimeter of your house at least once a month, taking a look at all your visible foundation vents, your attic vents, and your eave vents. Those are the most common places where things can get in.
Terrific. So maybe tell us about an interesting call that you've received from a homeowner that's asked you to come out and help them with a problem.
Okay. Well, let's see. There's so many different ones. What I like to tell people is that most people think when they ask me that question that it's going to be an animal that did something weird or funny, and that does happen from time to time. But most often it's the people that are kind of unique and provide the funny story. I've got a good story. This wasn't really about a call, but I was sitting at a traffic light, and I had a coyote trap. Every once in a while, we'll trap coyotes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a fairly big trap. And sitting in the back of the truck, and the guy pulls up next to me and wanted to know if he could rent that to trap his ex-wife. And I told him he could give it a try, maybe throw a coach person there or something. But that's probably the funniest thing that's ever happened to me.
That's great. Well, I was going to ask what is the most difficult critter to deal with, but I think we've already dealt with that question. So Chris, let me ask you. So you are different than, say, a pest control company.
Definitely.
And again, elaborate a little bit about what that different is.
So when I think pest control, which a lot of people do associate us with pest control companies, I think we're different in the fact that our customer service is number one. When you talk about big pest control companies, they're always going to want to sign you up to spray no matter what your problem is. You call them out for rats, you call them out for raccoons if they happen to have a wildlife trapper. They're going to want to get you on that residual contract. We're not about that at all. We're about servicing the customer for what the problem they need. Now, when we show up, if we see an instance of something that can be addressed, we'll definitely let them know. One of the benefits of using our service is we go all the way through the attic and the crawl space. So I'll be able to identify the leak that you didn't know about, or the fact that there's termite issues in the attic that maybe you didn't know about, and be able to hand that off and get you someone that can take care of that for you.
Yep. Terrific.
Okay.
Well, maybe tell us a little bit about your local operation here. The area you serve Milpitas, San Jose.
So right now we're currently running 4 trucks, and we serve most of Santa Clara and most of San Mateo County. So we have a pretty big service area.
Okay. All right.
Good. And what are some of the things that you hope to accomplish then with your business? Do you have any goals?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our number one goal is to become the wildlife trapping company in the Bay Area. You know what I mean? We want to be the household name. That's really what we're shooting for. We want, when you have, I have a raccoon problem. Hey, you know what? You should call Critter Control. You know what I mean? That's really what our goal is, to basically build a brand and become a household name.
Right. And then you personally, I mean, you talked about Little League and other things. What are your personal goals? What do you want to do?
I think my personal goals are probably, I definitely want to build my business, be successful, take care of my family, while also being able to give back to the community. I love coaching baseball, as Todd said. That's one of my passions is baseball. And definitely love to be able to give back time and volunteer time to the community that I grew up in.
Chris, thanks for coming in and sharing a little bit more about what critter control is, educating us about you and your company, and thanks for giving back to the community as well. If folks have a question and want to get in contact with you, maybe they have a problem
better,
Wow.
then they can see their life in a whole different light.
So I'm curious, you talked about that fascial tissue and the interconnection. I mean, is that part of the neurosystem? Is it part of the muscular system? Or is it a separate sort of thing in and of itself?
The fascial tissue is a separate entity. However, what we found, in the last 20 years, there's been so much more research about fascial tissue. And one of the things that we found is that there are nerve endings, free nerve endings, which really are mechanoreceptors. And so when you press it or twist it or turn it or I have different kind of inputs, we'll have a different response and will react. And so they're all over the fascial tissue. In fact, there are more nerve endings in the fascial tissue than anywhere else in the body. And so it basically, when we're working with the fascial tissue, we're also working with the nervous tissue. And because it's so intimate with the muscles and the muscle tissue, it really has an effect. But how you work with the fascial tissue is going to be different than working with the muscles, because muscles stretch.
Okay, so we talked about the rewards, and obviously there are many. What do you find really challenging? What are the basic challenges in your career?
The biggest challenge for me working with, is getting clients and people to hear and be willing to try something new and different. Because this is outside of the box. This is outside of the box in terms of how people work with bodies. It's like if you have a pain, people work where it hurts. They don't see the connection. And so getting people to really step into that and give it a whirl. I teach classes to people, like self-help classes, and I can also, I can give them tools and techniques that get them right out of pain. It's like, why are people just jumping at this? And I have no idea. So it's like, how can I bring them in? But when they experience it, they get it.
Okay. Okay.
So now, what sort of folks or cases are best suited for this sort of treatment? What are good clients for you?
The most wonderful clients are those that have had, like old injuries, or new injuries, and they've had old injuries that they've forgotten about or, thought they were healed. Surgeries, scar tissue. Women with C-sections generally end up with, problems, pain problems that are far away from their lower abdomen. And they'll have pain in their chest or their shoulder or their elbow or, their rib cage or their neck or their arm and their leg. I mean, I've had lots of runners come in and, have you had a C-section? Yes. And as soon as we release the scar tissue, boom, they can run faster. And so the scar tissue is it's not just the surface scar tissue, but it's the internal scar tissue when everything gets cut. A C-section is really brutal, back surgery, neck and shoulder surgery, all those surgeries, sports injuries, foot problems. I really like working with the feet because you get to the soul of the issue. And it's really fun. People think that like plantar fasciitis, is a problem in the foot. Sometimes it's in the foot, but a lot of times it's elsewhere. Like, when I've taught groups, to help themselves with plantar fasciitis, and we start with the head. And before we even get to the knee, they're out of pain or the pain is a lot less than it was. So it's a really diverse, kind of, chronic pain from old injuries, sports injuries, stuff. People who are really active and want to stay active and want to get back to active. Whether they're, hikers or runners or, elite athletes, and, it really doesn't matter. But they really have a desire to get moving again and love their body.
I'm curious, are there other professions that you work tandem with or refer, or like other chiropractic, massage, anything else that works in concert with what you're doing?
There are a lot of there are a lot of professions that can work with that, but it's like, again, it's connecting with them, the right professionals, because there's some chiropractors that I love what you do, and it's like, and they aren't doing ART, which is another body work technique, sort of like myofascial release, but it's different. They're not doing as much body work. They don't want to. They're strictly wanting to do chiropractic stuff. Those would are really good ones. Personal trainers, yoga instructors, Pilates instructors, because usually they have clients that can't do something. They have hurt, they've injured themselves doing something, and they can't work a part of the body. And what we would do is get to that and get that open. You know, it's like dancers. I had a tango dancer who couldn't do this step, and she could only dance for like an hour a day, or and only a couple days a week. And what we ended up being able to do is getting her to be able to do that move and be able to dance 5 hours a day.
Nice.
And so it's really, looking at the pain problem in a very different way. And so, I would love to be able to work with orthopedic doctors and, dentists too, because they have problems, jaw problems and stuff like that. And that's usually not just in the jaw. And so it's looking at the whole body and saying what's going on in the whole body. And that's what's different from me, with other practitioners. Because I'm looking, it's like, let's look at the whole body.
Right. So in your practice, and you've touched on a lot of different ways that you help folks, but if someone's in chronic pain, what are some good questions that they ought to be asking themselves to maybe, lead them on a path of discovery about how to deal with that?
Well, if they've seen a lot of different practitioners and they've all treated the same thing, you want to ask, is that really the problem? Who's going to help me?
Treatment without getting results, you mean?
Right, they're not getting the results they want, or they keep getting worse, or they, they get better for a little bit and then they get worse again. So it doesn't heal, it doesn't take them where they really want to be going, and, and it's like, and everybody's treating the same thing. And so, it's like, who's going to help me really get to the root of the issue? And, we talk about this. I have this pain in my shoulder, and it's really coming from my knee. It's like, how could that be? Because people aren't going to ask that question. Is there something else? What kind of injuries, what kind of surgeries have I had? What else has happened in my body? Because it's all connected. The whole body is connected. And if we don't look at the body as connected whole,
Right.
we can't get to the root of the problem.
Right.
Right.
So, what would be your goals and aspirations in terms of your work and career?
Oh, in terms of my work, I want to write a book. I would like to do a
Nice.
presentation at the, at one of the next couple of fascial conferences. I think I missed the next one, and that's an international conference, and I would love to do some research.
So there's a network of your professionals.
Yeah, a number of years ago, they got together, some researchers got together with some clinicians, and so there's a conference every couple of years, all over the world, and they get together and share research and clinical practice and stuff like that. So there's a real dialogue, and what's really cool about that is that here we have researchers and clinicians having to work together, because the clinicians inform the researchers, and the researchers inform the clinicians about what's really going on. And without the connection between the two of them, the research wouldn't get as far, the clinical work wouldn't get as far. And so it's a real good marriage. And a lot of science and a lot of research in lots of different fields don't do that. I want to write a book, and I want to teach more classes, because get it out to the world.
Terrific. So if someone wants to find out more, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, they can call me on the phone, 408-655-5767. That's a great way. You can also email me at bamboo.ilana, ILANA, 53@gmail.com.
And we'll put that on
And my website is bambooilana.com.
Terrific.
So
Yeah,
that's
great. Well, thank you for spending a few minutes with us.
Oh,
and
thank you for having
talking
me.
about
I
this very
appreciate it.
fascinating practice. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, thanks
you.
for coming on, and appreciate your time and,
Thank you
and
so
sharing
much.
with folks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Think you found every hazard out here today? Think again. The spot you missed could be a killer. That spot on your skin could be skin cancer. Fact is, if you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills one person every hour. 1 in 5 Americans is likely to develop a form of skin cancer during their lifetime. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. It could be the save of a lifetime. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
watching Valley Homes on TV. I'm Debbie Giordano, along with Todd Flesner. So
Yeah, we have our wrap up.
we do. This is for the month of October, and got some information for buyers and sellers. We'll talk about potential sellers first. With the impending drought, one of the questions that homeowners have is, should I put in artificial grass versus having real grass? And I got this article out of the San Jose Mercury, which I thought is kind of cool. Back in 2007, we had 10 or 11 different grasses. Today, we have 24 different products of artificial grass.
Okay.
And here's a good comparison on whether you want to do artificial turf or natural grass. Natural grass costs about $1.50 to $2 square foot installed. Artificial grass is $8 to $14 a foot installed. So it's quite pricey, but then you look at the potential advantages. Natural grass provides familiarity, like a smell of cut grass, where artificial grass eliminates the need for pesticides, stays green all year round, low maintenance, and depending on the area, can improve your home value, actually. Maintenance, natural grass takes water, fertilizer, and reseeding and mowing. Artificial grass, you just need a little bit of water to wash away the dust and pollen and any litter from animals that has to be taken care of. And then environmental impact. Natural emits oxygen and it's biodegradable. Artificial conserves water and is not biodegradable, but will eventually end up in a landfill. So you have to think of those long-term impacts. And last but not least, potential problems. Natural grass has a continual need for maintenance and ongoing. Artificial concerns only about chemicals used in production and can separate if the actual grass will separate if it's not properly installed. So anyway, that's
That's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah.
Because I've actually been thinking about that since we're in the middle of drought,
Right.
and I've got a brown lawn at this point in time. I've been wondering about that myself. Are there some advantages to going artificial versus?
And we might look to have somebody on the show next time that that is in that field.
I think I know a guy.
Perfect. I want to talk about rates. First of all, the stock market has been like a roller coaster.
A lot of
for the last-
volatility.
Right. So let me ask you about interest rates. First, so many people have refinanced. Let me go back a minute. It says in the San Jose Mercury in late August, interest rates fell to not much more than 4%. If we're in a recovery, then how come mortgage rates are not higher? And one of the reasons they give is that so many people have refinanced. Is that true?
Yeah, a lot of people took advantage of the lower interest rates over the last couple of years. We have seen a dip here recently, and currently rates are as low as they've been in the last 18 months. But there's always supply and demand. And then interestingly, you talked about volatility in the stock market. We saw a little bit of a correction coming into the fall in the stock market. We saw a couple days 200, 300 point drops in the Dow. And that uncertainty causes what we refer to as a flight to quality. All right, the bond market, which is a little bit more stable. You know what the rate of return is going to be there in the bond market, and therefore folks were buying bonds as a cover for the losses in the stock market. When that happens, interest rates typically will go down because of that demand.
Well, and one of the other factors they give is real estate demand is down, and that's based on a national level, I think.
Yes.
So that would be true?
Yeah, across the country, if you look at what the number of sales or the sales volume is for real estate right now, we're at very, very low numbers historically.
Okay.
And if lenders want to be able to lend money, they have to keep the rates low, because at a little bit higher rate, folks just are not going to pay that rate.
All right, and a third reason is that cash sales continue to be a part of the marketplace. How does that
Correct.
affect interest rates?
Well, here in this area, cash sales are a piece of that market. Again, it's that competition for where does money go, and if lenders want to be able to make money by lending, they have to keep rates low. One of the things that is happening is some people are going in and purchasing with cash, and then coming in and getting a refinance or financing that purchase after close. And in fact, you can do a refinance or finance a property within 60 days of closing, and still take advantage of the the same rules and tax deductions that you would get with a purchase money loan.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so some people are doing that.
One fourth condition: loan demand is down at the same time the marketplace is flooded with money, and they're talking about the chief economist that talks about that.
Right, and then there are also international pieces with that as well.